Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin today in Zimbabwe, where the main water treatment plant is temporarily reopening after being shut down since Monday. About 1 million people were left without tap water in the capital city of Harare. Officials say this reopening will bring a degree of relief to the city's residents at a time when there are also fears of waterborne diseases. Authorities are scrambling to secure water, purifying chemicals to keep up with the need for clean water. Zimbabwe was hit by a severe drought between October 2018 and May. Besides the water crisis, the UN Food Agency says more than 2 million Zimbabweans face starvation. Joining us now is a Zimbabwean journalist, Nigel Yamatumbu, to discuss more on this. Hello, Nigel. Thanks for joining us on the program. So help us understand just how critical this situation is.
It's a pleasure to be on Channels TV. Well, the water crisis has been ongoing since the early 2000s when it was actually discovered that the water in Harare was contaminated and was not safe for drinking or for home use. Only that now the situation has reached epidemic levels where clearly now there is no source of water in the country's capital city. All treatment plants have now officially been shut down, and there is no reliable source of water for the people of Harare, in particular those that cannot have necessary resources to have boreholes and so forth. So it is indeed a crisis. We are sitting on a health time bomb. We are sitting critically even on a starvation time bomb, and it's really not looking good.
I can imagine it must be very uncomfortable living without water. But how have citizens been coping since the shutdown?
It's been a crisis, and citizens have been resorting to all sorts of coping mechanisms, including using uncertified and all intents and purposes unhealthy sources of water, wells, digging up wells, and having to succumb themselves to some inhumane sources of water with the poor drainage systems and all. Yes, here and there, the United Nations has dug boreholes in some parts of the city, but it is still inadequate. It's insufficient to meet the demands and needs of the country. And the projections are that at least 1 million people are going to be directly affected with this water crisis. And if there is no urgent intervention, we could see yet another preventable waterborne disease crisis happening in Zimbabwe, and we hope the government is taking this with the seriousness it deserves.
Yeah, it just help us understand the situation a little bit more as the government is trying to resolve the issue. What exactly is the reason behind the shutdown of the treatment plant?
The main treatment plant, Morton Jeffrey, in Harare has been shut down due to a myriad of reasons. Firstly, we've had a drought in this country, which has resulted in the country main sources of water, main dams running dry. But also there has been an issue around the foreign currency to import critical chemicals in order to treat water and be able to supply it adequately. Government has said they have provided a couple of millions, just over 20 million, to address this water treatment crisis. But according to the city council, the city fathers in Harare, it is insufficient, it's inadequate to service the needs of the country, to service the needs of the city, and as such, closing the treatment center closing was the only option that was left, which is really unfortunate, and we hope plans are afoot to make sure that it's reopened soon.
So we know it will be reopened, but do we know for how long and what's the alternative provided for people when it's shut down again?
Well, I think the alternative is to really look at how, for starters, how we are going to be preserving water, how we are going to establish new sources of getting water, and how also we are going to address the foreign currency challenges, particularly to treat the water. So right now we are not clear when it will be reopened. We are not clear on when this crisis will be addressed. As I said, it's been ongoing for close to 2 decades now, with no end in sight, and one hopes that it will be a viable alternative outside what citizens have been doing using uncertified water sources, and having to spend a lot of time looking for water from various sources. It's unsustainable, and indeed it makes them prone to death, and to a number of preventable illness and diseases. So it is a critical matter that not just the government, but also perhaps the United Nations and other agencies should look into critically and help facilitate that.
Very uncomfortable situation there, Nigel. Nigel Yamatumbu, a Zimbabwean journalist, speaking to us there from Harare. Moving on now, the brother of Algeria's deposed former president has been sentenced to 15 years in prison for conspiring against the state and undermining the military. Said Bouteflika was widely seen as the real power behind the presidency after his brother, Abdulaziz Bouteflika, suffered a stroke in 2013. Two former Secret Service chiefs and a political party head were also sentenced after the two-day trial. 82-year-old Abdulaziz Bouteflika was ousted in April following pro-democracy protests. The U.S. military says it has killed 11 suspected Islamic State group militants in an airstrike in Libya. The attack on Tuesday was carried out near the southern town of Mosul. It was the second time in less than a week that the Americans had targeted fighters in the area. Some Islamic State group militants retreated southwards into Libya's desert regions 3 years ago after the group lost control of its stronghold in the coastal city of Sirte. Now, at least 6 people have died in Mali after a fuel tanker exploded during a traffic accident in the center of the capital, Bamako. Emergency officials say another 46 people were badly injured. Eyewitnesses say the tanker swerved out of the way of a motorcycle, lost control, crashed on its side, and exploded. The flames reached onlookers who ran to put themselves out in nearby gutters. However, officials say there are no suggestions that the accident had any link with Islamist groups who carry out attacks in the West African country. Now, President Paul Kagame says the fact that Rwanda is going to host hundreds of African migrants currently being held in Libyan detention centers is proof that Africa can solve its own problems. Mr. Kagame made the comments at the UN General Assembly in New York ahead of the arrival of the first batch of migrants on Thursday. He says the move is a clear sign that Africa can cooperate to address complex problems, as the continent is also a source of solutions. Rwanda agreed to take the migrants earlier this month in an agreement with the UN Refugee Agency and the African Union. The government has denied that it is getting money from the EU to host the migrants, who will be mainly from the Horn of Africa. In recent years, the EU has reached agreements with some countries to keep migrants from reaching its shores. Now, worsening drought and insecurity caused by Al-Shabaab have forced more than 5,000 Somalis to seek refuge in Ethiopia. So far this year, the number is about 4 times the total number that crossed the border in 2018.
Bawako Noor Abdi knew her family could not endure another drought, so she sold the little land they had left in Somalia and fled to Ethiopia.
I left because of my children. I want my children to succeed and have a bright future. Living on the farm when there is drought is always difficult. I have raised my children in hardship. I can't let them be taken away by the fighters.
With increased arrivals, sometimes as high as 80 people per day, there's not enough space to accommodate everyone. Climate change is fueling a cycle of vulnerability for pastoralists and farmers like Barako, while insecurity continues to threaten daily life.
New arrivals never stopped coming to Ethiopia, so every year we have some more coming and reporting the same challenges when it comes to drought, insecurity, shortage of food and water.
Climate change is fueling a cycle of vulnerability for pastoralists and farmers like Barako, while insecurity continues to threaten daily life. Many people arriving at UNHCR's reception center in Dolo Ado, 3 kilometers from the border with Somalia, say the drought is making it harder to pay the tax that Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab regularly extorts from those living in areas under their control. In 2011, drought in the Horn of Africa region caused a food crisis that affected more than 10 million people. More families are expected to flee to southern Ethiopia in coming months, as the country faces its worst harvest since the 2011 famine.